This is Scott with Learn to Stop Hunger, and today we're going to take a look at how to use Attendance Pal to track attendance for your group. As you can see here, I've got a Windows Phone emulator on the screen, and Attendance Pal is an app for Windows Phone 7 and Windows Phone 8. What I'm going to do to launch the app is go ahead and click on this Attendance Pal tile, and in Attendance Pal we have on the main screen three pivot items. One is groups, one is sessions, one is attendees. Groups are the groups for which you would like to track meetings. Sessions are the individual meetings for each group, and attendees are the people that are actually attending those meetings. So to get started, what we'll want to do is go ahead and create a new group, and you can see here we've already got one called Eccentric Pedestrians. Another thing worth mentioning is that the buttons along the bottom in the app bar here are context sensitive according to the pivot item that you're on. So as you can see here, the new button is enabled because you can create a new group from the screen. When we switch to the session pivot item, the new button is not enabled because sessions can only be created directly from the group editor. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new group by clicking on that new button from the group pivot item. We'll go ahead and type in a name, and let's see, we'll just call this Moms Group. It's a group of moms that get together. And track tardiness is used. You can just decide whether or not you want to track tardiness for your meetings. If you don't do that, leave it unchecked. If you do want to keep track of tardiness, go ahead and put a check mark in there. As a general rule of thumb, I'm guessing you would mainly use that for an actual class where that tardiness may be important to know about. Default session start time, default session location, and default attendees are all fields where you set values that will be used with each new session that you create. They're all optional, and if you do add values to these, you'll create a new session which will inherit these values, but then when you go in and edit the session, you can actually change the value. So I'm going to go ahead and set all three of these. My default session time we'll say is 10 in the morning, so 10 o'clock there. And my session location will be, let's say it's the mall. It's a mom's group. They probably like to shop, so that'll work. And then our default attendees, when you're on this Properties tab here, you can click the plus button, and that'll bring up a list of attendees that you can use for your default attendees. And Jane Doe is going to be our only default attendee here. Now, if I go to the session pivot item, you can see the new button is disabled. That's because you actually have to save the group before you can create a new session. So I'm going to go ahead and save here. Then if I go back in and edit my mom's group, the pencil button is the edit button there. I can go in here now and you can see the new session button is enabled. I'm going to click that new for a session, and here I am on my session screen, and by default the date is filled in with the current date, and then time and location take values from your defaults on the group. So I'm going to go ahead and change my date to August 18th, and I'll leave the time as is. If I go over another pivot item here, we've got the attendance pivot item, and that's where I can track the attendance. and Jane Doe is currently our only attendee. I can hit plus to add more attendees, but we only have one mom in our system right now. So to start off, I'm going to go ahead and hit the check mark to accept, and then I'm going to go ahead and save my group, which includes the new session. Now, once I get back to the main screen, if I go over to the sessions pivot item, we can see that my new session is listed on there. I want to go ahead and add an attendee, so I went to the attendees pivot item, click on the new button, and we'll go ahead and add Jenny Smith. Email and phone are optional, but those are good fields for helping to differentiate between attendees. In particular, if you have attendees that have matching names, the email or phone may be helpful. I'm going to go ahead and leave phone blank for now. Preferred contact method, you can choose either email or phone for this. You can see here I'm going to go ahead and stick with email, and the preferred contact method will actually be displayed with the, I should say, if you choose the email preferred contact method, the email address will be displayed along with the attendee's name when appearing in a list. If you choose phone, the phone number will appear with the name. I'm going to go ahead and save my new attendee here, and you can see that Jenny Smith was added. And like I mentioned, some of these have a phone number listed with their name and some have an email. Well, that's based upon the preferred contact method. So now if I go over to my session pivot item, I can edit my mom's group session directly from here. And I know that Jenny is going to be a one-time attendee. She may not attend future sessions, so I'm not going to add her to my default attendees, but I just will add her once on this list. And now I'm going to go ahead and save. And actually, let's say it's a future date and time and I'm ready to go ahead and record my times for this, or my attendance results. We'll say that Jane was present and Jenny was also present, but she was tardy. We'll go ahead and save. So we've got our attendance results saved, and now I have gone through setting up a group, a session, and a new attendee. There are a few more things that are worth checking out here. One is, if I go back to groups here, I've already got another group called Eccentric Pedestrians. You can actually run a report on each group attendee and session. So I'm going to go ahead and click the report button, and I had highlighted Eccentric Pedestrians. My report's going to load. You've got this simple pie chart that you see first, the summary, and that shows you a percentage of present, absent, and excused attendees for, I guess, over the course of all sessions for the group. And then if I go to the details pivot item, I will actually see each individual session summarized. And then at the very bottom we have totals, and we've got the percentages that are also used to drive that pie chart in the first one. And then from here I can actually run a report on a session if I want. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I can run that same session report from the main screen session pivot item. Similarly here we've got our pie chart and we have our details. And then finally I can run a report on an individual attendee. And once again, that can also be done from the main screen. This one's very similar to the other reports. We've got our pie chart, and then we have our details here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the main screen. There are a few more things that are worth noting. One is that you can search. Obviously, I have very little data right now, so That doesn't make much difference for me, but if you get enough data in the app, the search could be helpful. I'm going to search for mom, and it does come back with a group there. I don't get any sessions here, and also no attendees, but I could search each of those items based on my term. And then the final thing that I'm going to show you is the settings screen. Go ahead and click on settings. Two things you can change here. One is you can disable the background. The other is you can change the font size. I'm going to go ahead and save my settings. You can see the background is now gone, and also this font size here is larger. Font size impacts all fonts except for the pivot item titles and these application bar fonts. It does not impact those. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my settings and reset them to the original settings here. I'll hit save, and you can see my font is smaller again and my background is restored. So that's all there is to my basic introduction to tracking attendance for your group using Attendance Pal. I hope you enjoy the app, and I hope that this video has been beneficial to you. Thanks.